Are you looking to expand your mind? Do you like to challenge and be challenged? Looking to improve yourself and share your experiences professionally and personally? You're in the right place. Welcome to Scoutcast, Roasting Marshmallows, with your host, Rolf Surd.
All right, we are live. Welcome to another episode of Scoutcast. My name is Rolf Surd and I'll be your host. So a few years ago, I bought a new couch and, I walked up to the salesperson and I told him like, hey, I'd like to buy this couch. And he said like, well, join me at the table and we'll enter your details in the system. And a thing that I always do when I'm at like the doctor or buying a couch, I always look at what systems do these guys use. And I saw the salesperson entering the order, and he was using like an ancient old DOS program, and he had to navigate using a combination of tab keys and F keys and like typing everything manually. Like I don't think there even was a mouse present. But the order was placed. It was printed on chain paper using a dot matrix printer, and in the end, I actually got the couch, and everything was complete. And done, but I still had like this huge flashback to the 80s, It's like, man, we have all this super new cool technology and these guys are still using super old stuff. So I was surprised to see that, the store was using technology that was well over 20 years old. And when I asked the salesperson if it bothered him that he had to use such old programs that didn't really change much, he didn't even understand the surprise that I had, because he said like, well, this is what we use. It works fine. Why should we even change it? And, it made me wonder, do you actually need always the latest and greatest in technology? Can you get away with having an old system that is proven and battle hardened and, maybe you don't need to add new features all the time? And, to go even further, like, do we need technology for everything nowadays? I mean, yeah, everyone probably has some smart devices in their house, but, what's wrong with just using physical switches to turn off your lights? Like, why do you need to do that, through your smartphone? So that's what we talk about today, like, technology or even IT. Is it overrated? Do we actually need it? Is it actually a problem? Or is maybe something else the problem? Is it maybe, attitude, or is it business, or is it people? And so it's a broad topic, but to help me, discover these things are two of my very well-loved colleagues, Henk and Sylvester.
Wow. Thanks,
Welcome
man.
back into the
what
studio. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So, Sylvester, how are you doing?
Pretty good, actually. Yeah, it's Friday. We're doing the podcast early today, so I have lots of time this afternoon to finish writing documents. So I'm all good.
Yeah, and do you write these documents? Because I read somewhere that George R. Martin from the Game of Thrones books, he uses also like WordStar for DOS to write these best-selling novels. So,
No.
Are you using ancient technology as well?
Well, this in some ways ancient, I guess. I'm using Word at this point because I can actually do formatting, right? Google
Microsoft Word?
Microsoft Word. You know the one, right?
Oh my God! Okay, interesting, cool.
You're laughing. You're laughing.
Yeah, I did not expect that, because you're an Apple fan, man, right? I mean, it just works and it just integrates. That's what you tell me all the time. So
it does, man. It's brilliant. It integrates better than everything. The thing is, I have to send it to people and they need to be able to open it.
So it does not integrate with the outside world.
No.
Everything.
Well, long story. Yeah.
All right, but we'll get to that, I guess. And of course, you guys already heard him. Henk, welcome.
Yeah, well, man, thanks. Doing pretty good today. There's been 2 episodes that I was not here. I got some complaints from friends, of course. Maybe my mom, who listens to this podcast too. But glad to be back. So
you're missed.
And I don't know. That's what they say, but I doubt. But I was thinking about when you introduced yourself about the episode today, and it did strike me like I'm going to physiotherapy now to fix a problem on my shoulder, and they give me an app, right, that I can actually do my exercises and I can actually check my appointments, and it's a horrible app. It just makes me frustrated of using it, and I'd rather not use it. So I think it goes like an interesting point, I guess, is like if it is internal use of a software, probably the company is, maybe the software doesn't need to be updated very often, but I guess if it's customer facing and more people using it, then I think it has a different vibe to it. I don't know. I was just like contemplating this idea now, the moment that you actually talked about this old DOS software.
And then it's more about usability, right?
Yeah, and
Well, I don't know if it's about only usability. It's also like, for example, I needed to cancel my appointment. It's Corona time. I had a little bit of a cold. Wow, guess what? You cannot cancel the appointment. You need to call. So why do I have an app?
Well, that's a feature that still hasn't been implemented.
Wow, let's go with that. But I think it's more like intention. I don't know.
well, that's for sure interesting. That they give you an app and it kind of sucks to work with, and maybe you don't do your exercises as you should nowadays. So maybe it's even blocking you from getting better.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's
So it's defeating the
yeah.
point.
Yeah. But then what's the problem there? Is it the app? Is it, people pushing the app on you? Do you even have a choice? Like, can you maybe say to your therapist,
so-
like, hey, maybe just print out this stuff for me on paper?
Yeah, so I actually asked them because I went to quite a few physiotherapists and I asked, hey, why do you guys use this? And they said, like, wow, somebody, through the organization of physiotherapies, whatever the one that I go to, they decided to use that. And we also don't like it, but hey, that's what we have to work with. And then, in a way, it makes me wonder if they ever spoke to anybody who actually used the app,
Right.
because and I think that's somebody make a choice and had an idea, but I don't think they actually spoke to any customer because the app just not really usable at all.
It's kind of like, I guess, my toilet, right? Like recently I installed a new toilet and even that came with an app. So maybe it's like
What?
yeah, man.
So what can you do with the app? I'm really curious about
you
this.
you can control there's a light on the toilet that
A
helps
light
you,
on the toilet.
yeah, to help you find the flush button. It has like a little pilot light there, so you can find it in the dark. Should you ever prefer to do your business on the toilet in the dark? And there's a built-in fan, and you can control the fan speed with the app. So
There's a fan in the toilet or like in the bathroom?
it's integrated in the toilet, so that the smells get actually extracted from the
Okay.
toilet before they even reach your nose.
Did your life get better after having this fancy
spent-
toilet?
Or
I spent
your
the whole
wife's
day.
life.
I spent the whole day on the toilet, man. It's like you guys think I'm in the office right now, but I'm actually in the toilet sitting recording this episode.
Okay, so your life did
Yeah.
get better.
But I never used the app. But the point is that everyone and everything seems to think nowadays that they need an app. I guess, even if it's like even
Yes.
if the added value might be negative, even because the
I
experience.
do have
sucks.
to admit, when I went to Japan and I actually tried their warm toilets with water and music and thing, is one of the coolest toilets I
Yeah,
have ever been
exactly.
to my life. So I think technology there actually helped quite a
Okay.
lot.
Yeah, this sounds pretty
Yeah.
cool. So to switch the focus away from toilets back to IT, I guess, because due to our background, this episode of Roasting Marshmallows will focus more on the software side of IT. Because I guess technology you can also refer to it as hardware and like devices and all that kind of stuff. But like we mostly know software, so that's what we're going to be focusing on. And I don't know, maybe you guys do you have maybe some examples of when the IT or the software side of things is considered a problem by companies, but actually, it isn't? Or like what could be conceived problems in IT? So, Vasily, do you have an example?
Yeah.
Well, I was actually just thinking about what you said about the DOS application. That it made me think about actually my first, let's call it IT job, where I had to help set up a system like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was brilliant. The people loved using it because it was kind of like this technical production company, right?
Yep.
So they had these big mechanical keyboards, the old kind, you know them, right? So
Yep.
bam and bam, and it worked. And at some point, I think the supplier said, it was Exact. They said, yeah, but we're moving into new territory, right? And everyone is now using Windows, so you got to use the Windows edition. And I seem to remember a lot of people being frustrated because now they had to use this mouse pointer and then click in the first input field, then
Yep.
start typing and then repeating the process because all the shortcuts no longer worked.
Yeah.
So that made me think about your example.
Yeah,
I
so
think
they actually
that's,
upgraded to new technology, but it made their life worse.
Yeah, way worse. And it
Yeah.
also felt slower. That's weird, right? Because the DOS screens, they refreshed, well, like magic, and you saw all these things flipping by. You couldn't really read them, but it worked. And I think that's actually why Windows at some point implemented a progress bar, something moving, so you have the illusion of speed.
Yeah.
Or just a feedback that something is happening.
Well, to me though, like for example, when I'm at the doctor and I see the doctor using like an ancient old program, I always kind of worry about, maybe not having certain security measures in place or something, because it feels like there has not been any development done to that which like is just like it's a judgment call that I make basically on the UI, right? So I have no idea. But because it looks so old, I assume that it just doesn't get maintained anymore. And then I'm kind of worrying, like, is my medical data safe here? Is it also like super old stuff where, hackers can maybe easily get to it or not? Like, is it encrypted and, all that kind of stuff? So what do you guys think about that? Like, if old IT stuff works, like, don't touch it, or do you need to keep updating it? And if so, yeah, I mean, there can be huge problems, right, with maintaining old stuff.
I think you're touching an important point, right, like security. So I definitely have the same bias of, let's say, if I look at the UI and I say, oh, that looks nice, then it's probably, well developed, or they just actually had like a nice designer. But I think, knowing I'm also like I have a developer background, right, so I actually think those old systems, they are probably very unsafe. And I'm totally with you. It's a weird judgment call, but it's in the end, I think they should be constantly at least updated to the point that keeps them safe. But I think they are not.
Yeah.
Not true.
And I think that's why we should, as, let's say, companies or like developers thinking of it as well, on how to make sure that if this is going to live for pretty long, and that's the idea of software, right, that it can live for really long, we need to find a way to keep improving the security part of the product. What is really hard, I think.
I think that's an interesting point you're making, because it's actually not just about building the product anymore, right? Like it used to be. It's kind of like, okay, you're assembling the team and they're responsible for maintaining it and making sure it connects with users. And yes, it should be secure and encrypted and all that stuff. But I don't think that's how things used to work. And actually, I think a lot of the projects that we're facing, right, kind of like the legacy systems, they still stem from that kind of line of thinking, maybe.
But then it's interesting because, like, we're talking old software here, but that, I mean, the episode is about that IT isn't the problem, because the problem probably isn't to develop something new and modern, right? So why is it so hard to upgrade these systems to something new? Because it probably is never a technological problem. It's always like a procedural thing, right? Or like, I
think it actually starts with, why are you doing it? Are you simply replacing technology with technology because of technology? Then I don't think it makes any sense.
No, I think so I worked in this project in the past where they wanted to revamp their technology. They had technology already, so they had systems in place, but they wanted to go to this new trend microservice architecture, and has to be high scalable and has to be all the nice buzzwords that is currently in the market. And in the end, they hire a lot of people. I think I was one of the first ones that started there. And I think we hired about like 25 extra people. So we had like 3 teams out of like the blue. And basically there was not really a direction to go. So everybody said, I think we are too many. You have to scale down and actually see what is the point of all this. And then in the end, we worked for a year and we got nothing delivered, like absolutely nothing. And so I think in that case and then they blame IT, right? IT does not deliver. But I think it's a lack of direction of product, of business, what they are trying to achieve. But they're just thinking about the scale and about how like big it should be and how modern it should be. But in the end, it's like nice selling to get like, some certification or prizes. But then, and then they blame IT. So I don't think IT is the issue here, or at least not in that case.
So and why do you think it's so hard for the business to really come with a vision? Because like technology, because you guys could even start from scratch, right? Like a greenfield project. Okay, maybe you have to integrate some stuff here and there, but like, why is it so hard to set a vision and a dot on the horizon for everyone to work towards?
I think they believe, because we had this discussion a few times, and the comparison always comes like, but this is just like building a house, building a church, building a shopping mall, right? Like I'm saying, I wanted this big thing that thousands of people are going to come. Just build it for me. And then they think that's how it works. And I think that's the main problem until they are seeing a software as as building a bridge or a church or a huge building, then this problem is always going to be there, because they're going to just say, here is the constructor guys, make it happen. And that's where the main flaw, in my opinion, becomes between this IT and business friction.
And let's say, the business guys say like, oh man, IT never delivers, and history repeats itself. How do you break that cycle? Because that, of course, is the $1 million question, I suppose. But is there a way for business and IT to become friends and actually start working on something great together?
I hope so, because that's kind of what we do, right?
So answer the question.
I think it starts with getting clear on what's the joint goal here, right? It's not about building technology. It's also not telling the IT department what to build. It's about, okay, what do you want to achieve as a business? What outcome are you looking for? And then using technology in order to make that happen as smart as possible.
Yeah.
And that's also why I think replacing technology with technologies, there is no reason unless it leads to a better outcome for the business as a whole.
Yeah.
No, I do have a reason though. Like, I work also in this project. It's this big web shop in the Netherlands, and they basically saw that the number of, let's say, mobile users were growing, and the number of things, let's say, users buying products was growing quite a lot, and they could see that their technology was not handling well enough. It was slow. It would not be able to basically support all their users in like a year time. So they had to replace technology with technology to be able to support all those new, growing user base. So I think but I agree with you, right? Like, there is an outcome-based thing there. Hey, we want to sell more, we wanted to do more, we wanted to basically give a better experience. And the way to do that is not that our product is broken, it's just that it was built in a way that cannot support it. And then for me, it's replacing technology with technology.
Fine, okay, there could be a valid reason, but still you would do it gradually, right? At least I assume. But I also seen quite a few projects actually where we're going to implement microservices. And if you ask why, well, it leads to better scalability. And if you ask again why...
And you ask why?
Yeah, well, we have 5 users online currently, but we expect 10 million. And I think you're optimizing for something that I hope will happen for you.
Wishful thinking.
But yeah, there's no point yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, you think you're going to get all these millions of users and become this super big nice Netflix, and then in the end you just waste a lot of time and money and made your software more complex to maintain.
And then who because that's kind of like a symptom of over-engineering, I suppose, when, the IT says like, hey, we have to make this in a certain way to be future-proof for a future that might never even arrive. But how do you say that? Is that a business-driven decision, or why do these guys make these decisions, you think? Like, do they just want the flashy, cool, new, geeky stuff? Or
yeah, I think they do, because... if you don't have the shared goal or the shared understanding of what you're trying to accomplish as a company, I think you start optimizing for your own domain, right? And if technology is your domain or IT is your domain, you're going to do the best at it. That's what you'll optimize for.
So if IT and business need to bond together to make, the best solution for the problem, then why does the CTO position even exist? Like, should there even be a guy head of technology then, if it's a business thing?
Well, so just before I go there, because I have a point on this, I think what Sylvester said. I think a lot of companies look at IT as a cost thing, rather than that's part of the business and we invest in it and can retrieve, we have a big return of investment. So I used to believe that developers was the one, the technical people are the one basically saying hey, I want to build future-proof things. But we have had a lot of customers, including CEOs and managers who comes to talk to us and say, hey, I want your help to build for me and help my team to build a future-proof technology, and the question is, what does that even mean, right? Like a future-proof technology. And then they say something that I'm going to invest now and I don't have to touch it in the next 10 years. Oh, I don't think that exists.
It does. It's called a team that can modify the software for you.
Sure. Yeah, but then that's the thing. I think they come looking from the point of view of okay, I have, I don't know, 500,000 and I want to basically do this and I wanted this 500,000 to last for the next 10 years, and I do not have to basically touch the system anymore. But then that's the premise, I think, where they come from. right? Like it's the same as, well, basically when you build a house and you just have some sort of maintenance cost that is supposed to be low. So I think until they have this concept, I don't think these two sides are ever going to be able to work together in the sense that it's going to be like highly effective.
So then what would you suggest then? Like build software for the next 10 years and not bother to look beyond that? Or like what should be the scope of the future when you're developing something? Is it like right now? Is it the current sprint? Is it, I don't know, the roadmap?
I think it should be what Sylvester actually said. Like you build a team and then you say, guys, we have this business problem and maybe software is not the solution. It might be for most of the work, but then might not be software either. So you let them decide what is the best solution for that problem. Sometimes it's just sending an email. Sometimes it's creating a, like a forum, to send as a questionnaire. Sometimes it's actually create an app. Well, I don't know, but I think that they should look at it from the point of view, let's invest in a team that's going to solve this part of, let's say, our business problems and then see how well they do. But I do believe that software is very much now in everything we do. So I think it would be very tricky not be able to like have a team like this and have no developer in it. I don't think that also would work very well.
Right. And I thought it was interesting where you said like, sometimes we have to replace technology with technology, but at the web shop that you mentioned. But then it's a business-driven decision as well, right? And so replacing technology with technology can be a business decision, but sometimes it might also be because super old technology, phases out of support, right? Like I don't know, you have like a really old a mainframe maybe somewhere, it's super costly, and you need to replace it. Vendor lock-in might be a real problem. Yeah. So then I guess IT can really be the problem, right? Is that an IT problem or is that also a business problem?
Well, it could be an IT problem. It could be a technology problem. But then I would ask, okay, how did this problem actually came to be in the first place? Yeah, right? If you're in, let's say 2010, I think, right, around those timelines, and you still have a mainframe running, why didn't you start working on it earlier to rephase it out? Because the signs were kind of there, right?
Yeah, because we had to build this super important feature.
Exactly. And I mean, looking inside, the signs were there. But once you are in that context, I don't think the signs are that clear. Yeah. But I agree, you should look backwards. But I think the difference here is, you make a plan, and then eventually you achieve part of it. And then at some point, the word change, right? Like you can be like investing a lot in in an operational system that suddenly the person who was behind passed away, I don't know, or decided that I no longer want to work this way. And then it moves direction. And then it just, I guess, either bad luck or, then you have to deal with the consequences. It's a bet, I guess, at the end. But I don't know if there is like a way to avoid those. And I think there is like a study from Amazon about vendor locking. It's a bit of a conflict of interest as well, I guess. But they say it's actually cheaper to rebuild it than to actually build something that we don't worry about vendor locking. So every time you make something very generic, you basically make it so much more complicated that becomes so much more expensive than if you actually have to port it to another technology. And I tend to agree with that, even though I have not done a scientific study on it.
I think that's a great example. I've seen too many places where people start with building some kind of, maybe a piece of code. Oh, let's build this generic, right, with only one use case. The thing is, you don't understand it anymore. It doesn't perform well for the specific situation you want it to perform in. It doesn't make sense. Yeah. This is getting a rather broad topic today, but anyway.
Isn't that a famous quote as well? I forgot the name, but like a lot of problems in software engineering come from trying to make one thing do two things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think that's when things really goes wrong with, most of work with developers, they always say this, and it always annoys me a lot, but this might happen in the future, and I'm like, oh my God, here we go again, the same discussion.
Well, I mean, developers are really good at predicting the future, right? Because they also need to give estimates, but maybe not. Maybe we should
exactly
start talking about that.
No?
So
I'm still hung up by that example from the mainframe, though, right? So
Yeah.
why? Because for some reason the mainframe didn't become important enough to actually phase out, right? So apparently it was supporting a business process that didn't really matter,
yeah.
right? So and at some point it becomes important. So how is then technology the problem there?
So the problem becomes because like maybe the mainframe was super reliable and it just worked, and people say like, hey, you know, this piece is here, it's working, let's not touch it, let's focus on new stuff. And then maybe you come at one point where I don't know, like a part in the mainframe broke, and now all of a sudden it won't start anymore, right? Because it's 35 years old or whatever. And then you have to replace it, and then it's an actual technological problem to actually either get the thing working again or change the software so that it doesn't need the mainframe anymore. Maybe you need to salvage some data, I don't know. But then you have like
Or not only that, right? Yeah, and also on the top of that, the expertise of people gets more expensive because people are moving on to new technologies, and then the old one basically has less people. So you have like another problem to solve.
So then you have a real technological problem on your hands that you need to solve, which isn't like kind of business driven, because it's driven because the technology actually just breaks down on you.
Yeah, but then it is business driven, right? There is a risk.
My point.
That you decided to take.
So every year when you decide not to update super old technology, you're increasing your risk. Well, that's an interesting viewpoint. Yeah.
I mean, it's the same as like every year that you decide to keep unhealthy, not exercising, not doing anything to your body is a risk you take for the future, right? So it's like, I think in the end, it is a choice that the business make it. And the question is like, do they understand this risk? And I think that's the part that they don't.
And
at least
who needs to explain the risk to them then? Is that the IT department then?
I think that's your CTO role that you asked before, right? Like, what is the role of a CTO? I think in a way he needs to build this gap.
I'm being a bit idealistic today.
Sure.
But we're saying business and IT, and I think that's actually the problem we keep running into.
Yes.
That's the real problem here.
Can you elaborate?
Yes.
Well, is it a business decision? I don't know. If IT is part of that business, which it is, then yes. But it's a joint decision, right? You're trying to accomplish something. Is the mainframe getting in the way? Fix it.
Okay.
But
fix it. What does that mean? Fix
I don't know. Replace the functionality piece by piece. Get rid of the critical processes running there. Make sure you have a backup process. It could mean anything.
Yeah, but then now you're touching a part of like we are assuming that they know how to do that, right? Like, is there how do you say, like required skills, or because for me then IT becomes a problem again, right? Because that's what we hear all the time. Like a CEO comes to us, I need your help. My IT team doesn't deliver. And then it's like, is there an IT problem? Like in the sense of like what you are describing, people just don't have maybe the expertise how to do what you're describing, or is because the company has no direction?
Well,
I think that's the part that
I
is
have a
tricky.
few mainframe examples from my career, and I think in all cases people were very aware of the risk of running those things. Right? And
People, define people?
well, I was in the IT department, so IT people.
Okay.
And for some reason it doesn't become important. Maybe that's because we're thinking still in projects, right? Okay, so we have a project to build feature X, fine, or product X, and yet it didn't include fixing the mainframe dependency.
So then,
Because of, well,
right, but then like there's the technological problem, but you're saying that there is a deeper problem laying underneath that, because basically by the time that you have the technological challenge in order to replace the mainframe or whatever problem it is that you need to tackle, but you're saying like that this could have been prevented if it has been not an IT problem, but more like of a company-wide strategy thing.
yeah, or how it's organized. And like I said, I'm being a bit idealistic, but
Yeah,
I think
it's
in the
okay.
end, right, you have a team that's working towards a business outcome, and they're using technology to scale that in some way. And if they're working on a mainframe, at some point it will become an impediment for them. So they will start working it out of the way. And I think, well, in the examples at least I have, it's more okay. going to replace this functionality, fine, but there's no thinking about the mainframe because it's too expensive, it's too risky, we don't know, so just leave it there. We don't want to explode the scope of this project we're doing.
Right.
But that also makes sense, right? I mean, it's
No, it doesn't.
reasonable fear. Well, I think it does. If you have, let's say, an airline running these big mainframes with flights going like across the globe and like moving thousands of people every day, and then try to do some changes and break the whole thing, and suddenly nobody can fly for 24 hours or even longer, I think it's a reasonable fear, yes. Reasonable enough to be afraid of touching it.
Yeah, no.
I'm not saying it makes sense, but I think it...
I agree with you on that part. But the thing is, if you don't touch it, you know this is going to happen at some point. It's not if, but when.
Yeah, but then it's not your problem anymore.
No, okay, so
maybe you're already done.
So it's not a technology problem.
Yeah, so the technology is just a symptom in this case.
I think so. I think actually in most cases it is. We also have a lot of situations, I'm going to use a different word here, where we encounter legacy software and a team that's not able to deliver anymore, right? And then, yes, the typical question is, my IT team doesn't deliver, fix it. Well, I think it starts with asking the question, how did this legacy actually came to be? And that probably also has to do, okay, how are you, what are the responsibilities or the accountability of the team that's actually working on it? Are they responsible for the business outcome, or are they responsible for producing the new features? And I think that's where it starts.
Yeah.
This is one of those topics we're going to agree again, so that's why there's a silence dropping in.
Yeah, I think we're definitely going to agree with it, because it's like we see all the time, and I think that's one of also the big, frustrations, right, in our line of work, is that we come and then we just see this huge Jira ticket explaining everything what the developer has to do, and then in the end they do exactly or close to what is written there and the customer doesn't want, and then in the end the IT department gets the blame again, where in the end the problem was never there. Like, okay, I had to solve this problem and then figure out the best way to solve it. And I think, they remove the power of the people to actually figure it out. And then I think in a way is my biggest frustration when I constantly hear every customer we go and they say IT does not deliver, and then we ask, okay, what have you tried? And they just keep pushing down as much hard as they possibly can, hoping that the outcome is going to be different, but the problem just keeps getting bigger. And that's.
But what if your IT department, like let's say IT and business is super aligned together, but what if the IT department just only has, I don't know, junior developers who just don't have the experience to and even if you can do a greenfield project, they may not have the experience or the ability to architect something that will work out.
Okay.
Like is then maybe IT a problem?
Yes. Of course, it's competence, and the competence in this that we are talking about here is an IT competence, so background of software development. So that means yes, IT is a problem. The same way as would be if you have a bunch of, let's say, senior software engineers, and your commercial side, business side is a bunch of 18 years old who just get out of high school, and then they are pretty junior on it. Yeah, the chance that this is not going to work is, I think, pretty high.
You don't agree? That's interesting.
No. How is this a technology problem? Who decided to hire only junior developers?
I'm not saying a technology. I'm saying it's an IT-related problem. It's like we're talking about competence on the IT industry, right? So like we're talking about software developers who don't have the experience to pull it off.
Fine. But still, who hired those people? Who decided to start a project with them?
Well, maybe it's someone who just came out of university, decided I want to start my own business. Maybe the development team is the actual CTO.
Okay.
Yeah.
I still don't think it's an IT problem, but maybe it's me.
Maybe there's a budget issue,
okay,
I can only afford to hire these junior people.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in an environment that myself. That was my first job. Like the guy hired 11 juniors. I was basically my first month of university. I barely knew how to write a for loop. And I had another 11 peers like me on the same boat. And it was like, sorry for the word, but like a shit show. Like the amount of crap code we actually produced per minute was like pretty high, And then in the end, this software might still be run some government somewhere. And I think in that case, IT was a symptoms of the problem, but yes, I can agree with Sylvester on this, that the problem was like he only hired the cheapest labor he could possibly get.
And that's not an IT problem. If you get the cheapest labor in whatever your business does, you're not going to get the experience you want to make things happen.
Yeah,
so this is not an IT problem.
You pay peanuts and you get monkeys, right?
Yeah.
But is there not a single example?
Oh, mark this occasion in a podcast live. Oh, brilliant!
But is there not a single example to give where IT is the actual problem? Sorry, excuse my words there. There has to be an example where it's like, okay, these IT guys, man, you know.
Yes, I think there is. I think there is a combination of how do you say, like. I worked in a team that over-engineered everything, and they were seniors as well. I was part of it as well, and we did definitely over-engineer everything that was not per se aligned to a business outcome. And what I meant by this is that every single time they would come, we would say, hey, we need to refactor this. Hey, we need to refactor this. And we push them back in every new functionality. And looking out, like say, backwards, it was mostly our ego, right? Like CV building, like, oh, we need to do this new technology because the market is moving that way. But there was not really any reason for it. And on the idea of, like, say, having business IT side, well, the business was basically supporting us. Okay, if you guys say that, let's do that.
No one challenged you on these decisions?
No, because they did not know and they trusted us to be the better judgment. So I think we are the problem then.
Okay, but I have to ask, you said, okay, well, it wasn't really optimized to a business outcome. Did you know the business outcome?
Not per se. I mean, we knew that we had to deliver a few functionalities, but not per se what the outcome was. Okay. No. Of course, the outcome was get more customers, but not much more than that.
Did you see what impact your work had on getting more customers?
No.
Is it then an IT problem?
So you guys were isolated from the rest of the organization then?
Well, not per se isolated. The thing is, the way how I can see this as an IT problem is that we could actually we should have highlighted all that, right? Like, what is the outcome of this? Why are we doing this? You know, like, what do we, then we can base our decisions. But all our decisions was based mostly internal on the team, thinking about this product that we wanted to hold and about ourselves, not... But so I guess you have a point again. If maybe all those things were clear, we would not have to take those decisions. That's what you're trying to say.
So what I'm trying to say is, of course, the technology is in the end is a problem, right? You build features and stuff that's not going to be used, or well, it's beautiful code, but it doesn't really have a purpose. But I think in the end, it's an organization problem. It's still business and IT. If you're working together on something that you both understand, then this shouldn't happen, I think. So it's not per se the technology that's the problem there.
Yeah. Well, IT in this case then, I suppose. But
I'm really wondering about the comments on this episode, actually.
No, but like, okay, so I remember watching this episode of Uncle Bob, where he talks about this company who bankrupt because of crap code. So don't you think if you actually have people that write a lot of crap code, they can actually break the company down?
And, I know in the end technology can be a problem for the company. I'm just saying, well, usually it's not, maybe that's what I'm trying to say. It's a symptom, right? It's not the cause.
Yeah, it's a symptom,
And we had a lot of clients that are facing legacy software, unable to produce anything anymore. How do you get out of that? Well, it starts with increasing your quality, improving the practices, right? That's also where we start. But we also end up working towards, okay, what's the bigger vision here? What are you trying to achieve, right? And how do we make sure your team actually understands that and figure out a way that they can measure progress?
And then, once these steps have been taken, have you seen that, the IT and the business, start becoming friends again, where they really see like, okay, instead of stop blaming each other, we need to work together? Like, can you turn it around?
Yeah, sure. I think it actually, in most cases I've seen, right, it starts with talking. And it's not that difficult, right? It
is actually quite
talking?
difficult. But yes. If it was easy, we won't do it. It's one of those things that is simple but not easy.
I don't think we would have actually have this job, right?
job.
Okay,
Exactly.
okay. Maybe it's because of our background then, but right for me it starts with talking to actually business, right? Which is also a misnomer in my book, right? Because business is marketing, it's sales, it's I don't know. There's lots of people running around there, and you start talking, and you start figuring out what people are trying to achieve, their frustrations, and right. Well, usually you end up with someone saying, "Well, I filed a Jira ticket 2 years ago." And it still doesn't work, but it's a real problem for my customers. I think it's about, well, learning that, then improving it. And by doing that, you increase the collaboration and the friendliness, if you will.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny, like, because my brother, for example, he sometimes works as a consultant for certain car importers, and he always says, like, yeah, you come to these really nice big buildings, and then you usually talk to like account managers or sales and marketing first, and then you have these nice offices high up, with nice views, and then you make a trip down to the IT department, like actually like physically like lower, like in the basement, actually like super dark, everything, like it's a total different world. So do you think when you say like start talking, that maybe people should start working together better as well, not just maybe talking but also being physically in the same room once Corona allows 100%. For it?
Yes. Well, it doesn't even have to be physically in the same room, right? I think remote can work. Ideally yes. They need to work together. I think that's the main thing.
Right.
And in order to work together, you need to have some kind of shared objective. That's it.
Yeah.
And I told you I was writing a word. I'm actually writing about this right now, so that's why it's triggering me today.
Oh, so you're writing a book now?
No, that's way too much work. Is there technology to do that, or?
What are you writing then? Is it going to be a long read for the website or something?
No, it's not going to be a long read. I will tell you about it. I was going to say in our next meeting, but that's not going to continue because of your holiday.
Yeah.
So I will tell you next week.
Sure.
It's going to be great, man.
So, do you all think there is any place that the technology is a problem?
I actually have to kind of agree with you, where you have this like almost aristocracy of senior engineers or just engineers in general, where you have the business that says like, okay, we need to have this, and then you're just going to totally over-engineer it because you have a certain ego or you want to try out, I don't know, oh man, I've heard about this cool new technology, I'm gonna implement this because I would just want to learn it, rather than saying like, hey, this is the best tool for the job. And while I do think that in the end it's an organizational problem as well, because like maybe the culture is kind of whack like that, but still I think it's the IT department that might be driving these decisions and really pushing it through. Then for sure I feel that it is an IT problem, and that you can only fix with maybe putting in some new people there to challenge the way of working there, and that might not be something that the business can actually overcome, because these guys or girls usually don't have the technical know-how to really challenge these people on those decisions.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can bring in more critical people, right? I know a few if you're looking for them.
No, but if you're a senior engineer, right, and like some CTO or CEO is telling you like, hey, I heard you guys are going to be using Kafka, but I don't think we need that. You're going to be telling like, dude, mind your business, right? If you're a high level, highly paid senior engineer. So I don't know. I do feel you need a certain type of people to really be able to do that.
And then imagine, because I think what Sylvester is trying to say now, and I'm going to predict his mind, is that like, then the CEO could bring a group of experts to challenge you, and then like I imagine myself as a senior engineer, like, oh, so my boss doesn't trust me, that's why he's bringing external guys to basically look at my decisions as a senior engineer.
No, I wasn't going to say that. So you're wrong. No, I think most senior engineers, right? Well, I said this before actually, but if your domain is technology and you're not sure how it's going to be used, right, or what you're trying to accomplish with the business with the technology, then you're going to optimize for the technology. That's what you know.
Yeah, but what if you don't care?
I don't buy that people don't care.
No, but let's say you're an engineer.
Or if you don't care, what are you doing there?
No, but let's say
a different word.
Then you did.
No, but let's say you're an engineer and you join a company because the tech stack seemed cool, but the business is like, whatever. These guys, I don't know, they sell model trains. I don't care about model trains, but the technology stack that they're pushing is pretty cool.
If that motivates you, fine.
But stuff like that
for me-
happens, right?
Maybe, but then you better get your motivation from somewhere else than your work. Because you're building technology that's basically not going to be used.
Well, there is a hope that is going to
Yeah.
be used, right? And I think that's the
Yeah.
part but that's the whole thing. Like that's when the problem is. This, like I encountered them. I was one of them at some point in my career. I love the technology. I wanted to improve the technology. I wanted to improve my craft. I did not care per se about the business because maybe it was not visible. Maybe I was just immature. Maybe there is like a lot of reasons for it. But the point is, there is still at some point in time in the career of a developer that they just want to build.
Sure.
And they actually don't really looking forward to like, oh yes, I'm helping somebody. Sometimes yes, sometimes not. So I think that, yes, I still think that can be an IT problem. It's like somehow like a general behavior, you know, I don't know, like
Yeah.
a lot of them
But
have
I
that.
think it's a symptom.
But yeah, in general, I do agree that like 99% of the time it's an organizational thing or a business thing or that
Not
it's a
business,
symptom.
organizational, that I'll go with, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, organization, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, we can agree on that.
yeah. So symptoms they tend to come out, and is it hard to really find the underlying problem? You think because it's easy to say like, it's an organizational problem, but that's super broad, right? Like it's I think it's kind of hard to pinpoint like where is the pain? Is it like is it a specific individual? Is it maybe certain rules and regulations that the company applies to their employees? Like, I don't think there's one answer.
I think it's easy. I think it's easy to
Really?
identify what the problem is. I think it's hard to fix
Right.
it. But I think it always goes back to like, why are you doing this? And then in the end, if you get no answer, then yeah, here is the problem. You are doing something that you don't know what you're doing. And then you're going to basically have a lot of people going different directions, hoping to achieve whatever it is for them. But yes, how to go around to make that change, I think that's then a much more
Yeah.
broader discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's going to be a few podcasts by its own.
Yeah. Well, we
I
actually have one of those episodes, right? Like building a dream team. I think that's step one, right? To get the team all aligned on the same page and being able to talk to each other, let alone
Absolutely.
outside of the team, maybe. But like the team itself should definitely be early
Yeah,
on
but
the
that's
agenda.
the thing. I think it starts with actually the discussion who's on that team,
Yeah.
right? And that requires an organizational change and a different organization on how what is the team actually trying to achieve.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then it doesn't start with who is in that team. It starts what are we trying to
Yeah,
achieve.
okay, I know that, but
And
he
then
was talking about
goes
the team.
backwards.
So, we also have this assessment, right? I'm doing a sales pitch in between now, where we actually say,
Don't do it.
We start with asking the questions. Okay, what is the vision, or why are you doing this, right? And we tend to get 9 different answers if we ask 10 different people. I think that's where it starts.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we've talked a lot about the subject. I think we could go on for quite some more time, I think, but we might end up going in circles. I don't know. Do you guys have anything more to add? Anything to ask to each other or to me or to the
I'm just going to
listener,
make a
maybe?
statement. I'm going to say technology never is the problem. It might be a symptom, though.
Okay. So what?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think technology, it is never the problem, but I think it is a symptom. And I think it is a symptom that people like to treat, and they waste too much time treating the symptom in the wrong way and not actually fixing the problem.
Yeah.
So I agree with you 100% for the first time.
This
Yeah,
is a
nice,
day of
man.
first, man. God.
Yeah. It's on tape. It's on tape.
Dave?
Yeah. Well, on video.
Now we have a technology problem.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also think that usually technology isn't a problem. I do think that sometimes we want to apply technology to everything where it might not actually be needed all the time. I think one of the examples that we all give a lot of the times is, well, why not just start with like a Google form somewhere to to see if this idea that you have actually has merits. So I think we do need to be careful when we start developing technology or start applying it. But other than that, I actually agree with you guys.
And it doesn't mean the symptom, we need to say that again, the symptom can be very disastrous for a business, right? if technology isn't performing like you want it to be, the business can indeed be, well,
Sure, but then don't fix the symptoms.
no, fix the problem.
Go
Yeah.
to the problem because you don't want your
and
problem
treat the
solved.
symptoms.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool.
All right. And so, the listener, what do you think? Do you think technology is a problem? Does your IT department not deliver? Do they suck? Maybe, I don't know. I hope not. I don't think so. But yeah, let us know how you feel, and if you think that we can help, for sure, drop us a line. And if you have a nice example of when IT was actual the problem, we would love to hear about it, so we can maybe challenge you a bit on that notion. Send us an email at podcast@4scouts.nl, or send us a tweet at 4scouts, or maybe even send us a voice message on Anchor. You can go to the link anchor.fm/4scouts and hit the message button to send us a nice voice message. We would love to hear from you. I'd like to thank my guests, Ahik and Sylvester. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you again.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Scoutcast, Roasting Marshmallows, with your host, Rolf Surd. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit 4scouts.nl and on Twitter @4scouts. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time on Scoutcast, Roasting Marshmallows.